Hello?
Hello.
Yes?
Yes.
Hello?
Am I talking to María Corina Machado?
Yes, this is María Corina.
Yes, María Corina. My name is Christian Berg-Harpviken. I am the secretary of the Norwegian Nobel Committee in Oslo. And I'm calling to inform you that in a few minutes it shall be announced here at the Nobel Institute that you will be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for 2025.
Oh my God.
So the warmest congratulations to you, Maria.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, I have no words. I thank you so much, but I hope you understand this is a movement. This is a achievement of a whole society. I am just one person. I certainly do not deserve this. Oh my God.
I think both the movement and you deserve it. I want to quote just shortly from the text that will be announced shortly, where it is said that you are receiving the prize for, and here I quote directly from the announcement, for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy.
I'm honored, humbled. I am very grateful on behalf of the Venezuelan people. We're not there yet. We're working very hard to achieve it, but I'm sure that we will prevail, and this is certainly a biggest recognition to our people that certainly deserve it. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Drum roll, and in one of the most publicized Nobel Peace Prize contests in history, the 2025 award has gone to María Corina Machado of Venezuela. She insisted she didn't deserve the honor, a sharp contrast to nominee US President Donald Trump, who has publicly demanded it. So, who is this 58-year-old politician from Venezuela? Machado is the first Venezuelan to receive the Nobel Peace Prize and only the 20th woman in its 124-year history. An industrial engineer by training, she has spent years campaigning for fair elections, rallying opposition against Nicolás Maduro's dictatorship. The Norwegian Nobel Committee praised her as a brave and committed champion of peace who strived for a peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. The Nobel Peace Prize itself was established by Swedish industrialist Alfred Nobel. It was first awarded in 1901, uniquely not in Sweden, but in Norway. Back then, Norway was a lightly armed nation seen as best suited to honor peace. This year, Norway is reportedly bracing for how Trump, one of the high-profile contenders, might react to not winning. Across the world, of course, conflicts continue. Thousands of civilians have died in Sudan, Ukraine, and Gaza. Nothing has been more heartbreaking than seeing children caught in the suffering. In such a world, what does it really mean to honor peace? And can a prize really make a difference on the ground, or is it primarily a symbol of hope? To discuss these questions, I'm your host Anupama Chandrasekharan, and I'm joined by Harsh Mandar, a human rights activist and former civil servant in India, who is the founder of Karwa-e-Mohabbat, or Caravan of Love, a campaign across India supporting victims of hate, violence, and displacement. Welcome to In Focus, Harsh.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Anupam.
Harsh, I'd like to start with just Alfred Nobel himself. He was a Swedish chemist, industrialist who made his fortune from dynamite, a powerful explosive used in construction, mining, and not to forget war. Yet he left instructions to create Nobel Prizes, including one for peace. What do you make of that act?
See, these prizes, a lot of the prizes, the Raymond Magsaysay Award as well, I think, they, uh, uh, the uh, the founding may have, there'll be questions about uh, where the resource for it is coming, the but I think, if you go that deeply, if you go into Oxford University and Cambridge University and how all of these were set up and so on. So I think they are important questions, but let's take them at face value. I think that he felt that peace was something that must be honored, and in some way, I think, if you have to choose probably the most respected prize in the world, it's probably the Nobel Peace Prize. And I think it is fitting that you have an award for peace. How you understand peace, of course, is complicated. How you select and who you select is complicated. Uh, but but I think, when I see, India, these various magazines bring out power lists and so on every year, and I've noticed in recent years people who work for peace, for social equality, against discrimination, against hate, you almost find none in the list now. You find people who are wealthy, sports persons who also make billions of rupees, etc. I think it's fitting that at least it's a reminder of who our true heroes are. And that's where I see the importance of the Nobel Peace Prize.
And Harsh, of course, you yourself have been nominated for this prize, as we were talking right before our conversation, this recording began. Now, this year's winner, Maria Corina Machado of Venezuela, she won this award for leading initiatives to hold fair elections, organizing peaceful protests against authoritarian rule. Can you tell us what you know about her and why she deserves this recognition?
Firstly, I don't know her, and I think that's the fact that she was picked up. It heartens me. That she clearly wasn't working for this prize. She wasn't some kind of um, high-profile person. Her declaration that she didn't deserve the award, and that she wasn't. I think all of it is, it sort of warms my heart. I think that's the kind of person who should be found and identified. I also feel that we're living through an era which I describe as an era of civilizational crisis, because more and more leaders, more and more people around the world are choosing leaders who are teaching us to hate, who focus on small vulnerable minorities, but also who have a huge impatience with democracy and democratic processes, uh, who uh, who also, I mean, there's a certain decline in the civility of public discourse. What we are facing in India is actually, and in the United States is sadly not unique. We have variations of it around the world, and these are people who are not coming, and very often are people who are chosen by the electorate. So I think that in these times, the courage, people of courage who are standing up against these powerful leaders, risking uh, risking everything, are people who must be honored. And obviously, a prize like this is symbolic. I mean, it's a huge world, but that they have identified somebody who symbolizes this resistance to to stealing our democracy, stealing the agency and choice of ordinary people, but also this kind of authoritarian, chauvinistic politics. I think it's wonderful that they've selected somebody who symbolizes this. I also wanted to just say that, yeah, when we talk about peace, also what is peace, and I think maybe we could spend a little time talking about it. But I'd say a line, in a play of words, I don't just want peace, I want a just peace, right? So what is a just peace? Like inside a family, if a woman doesn't complain when she's suffering discrimination and violence, you might find it a peaceful home. Then it's not a justly peaceful home. And
Yeah.
likewise in countries. So it is people who want a peace which is based on equality and justice.
Yeah. In fact, when you talk about a just peace, it's actually kind of telling about Maria Machado as well, because she has basically spoken a lot about demilitarizing public life and actually letting citizens, not soldiers, decide a country's future, right?
Yeah.
And more importantly, a lot of what she did make her a target, which is kind of a sad part of being a peacenik today, right? Because it cost her freedom, because she is in hiding, and her children are also, are not in Venezuela, which is her home country, right? Which has been the cost she's paid. And of course, she's always said one thing, from what I've been reading as more and more news about her is out, is that real peace cannot come from the barrel of a gun, and it has to come from the will of the people. That's something she's spoken about a lot, and I'm sure that's something you agree with as well.
And
Yeah.
and I think because we're also seeing a lot of countries now, India and the United States, but many European countries, where in a sense the will of the people is throwing up authoritarian leaders,
Mm.
and that's an even harder paradox to fight. So it is partly it can be explained by stolen elections, that elections are not free,
Yes.
etc. But I think while that is true, and those questions have been raised within our own country as well in India, but I think there's something more fundamental, even than stolen elections, that explains. I mean, we need to understand why young people, why in America, for instance, in the United States, Black and Latino young men voted in large numbers for Donald Trump. I mean, there's something much more complicated happening in our societies, and if you have a military regime, of course, firstly the military must go, but in recent times in South Asia, we've seen three uprisings. Nepal, and before that Bangladesh, before that Sri Lanka. In a sense, we just focus on Nepal. They set fire to the Supreme Court and to the parliament and to the homes of political leaders across the spectrum.
Right, and
So
this also happened recently in Ladakh, right, where they actually set
absolutely,
fire to the Hill Council itself
yeah.
office, right?
So I think we must hear. That's why the idea of a just peace. We must hear why young people are basically saying, the political establishment is not working for us. It is not giving us a future. It's also hugely corrupt. The inequalities are huge, and we don't have a future to look forward to.
Yeah.
And I think, in my own work as well, we don't need to demonize those who are losing faith, but understand, and we have to imagine a state set of public policies that actually protect the future for young people. I think that's really important, and have spaces for dissent, have spaces for multiple voices, and so on and so forth. So I have a feeling that when I look at Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, the trouble is that the anger, firstly, it was violent, and that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
But apart from it being violent, it knew what it was fighting against. It didn't know what. We don't have a clear idea of what we're fighting for. What is that society, that
That's a great point.
country, that
Yeah.
world? What is it going to look like? And for instance, what is the healthcare system going to be? What is going to happen to children? What is the childcare services? What is the protection that minorities will face, etc., etc. So I have a feeling that just reaching across the continents to the Nobel Prize winner, whom I don't know,
Yeah.
but I think that we're all bound in some way in this recognition that we cannot let our world go into the hands of leaders who both don't believe in the will of ordinary people, but also who are hateful to minorities.
Yeah.
And while we fight and resist them, we also have to imagine
The alternative.
as
Yeah.
well. And so the importance in a award like this is actually to underline who our true heroes are, and we don't remember them very often. Even the Nobel Prize Academy doesn't sort of always remember them. We must remember Gandhiji was never given the Nobel Peace Prize,
Yeah.
and Obama and many Kissinger folks were given it. So this is a year to celebrate, because I think a true hero of our times has been found and located and honored.
Yeah. Now, Harsh, you mentioned when we started this previous question and your response to it, you'd spoken about transparent elections, and of course, there's more to it than that. But one of the things that Machado has worked very closely and has worked peacefully is to fight for free and transparent elections, in Venezuela. And she confronted her own government crackdowns and threats to her political party. What lessons does her approach hold for countries like India, where electoral fairness and democratic norms have been under pressure, right? I mean, there's so much of headlines about Bihar, about what happened in Karnataka.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And I think it's an important lesson that we have to learn. I mean, she's part of the formal political opposition. She's unlike somebody like me who's fighting in civil society. And I think both have a role, and an important role. What I'm missing in India is somebody like her, who is within the political system, but fighting it, in a way to reclaim the integrity of the democratic process, and also fighting elections in the way that they should be fought. I mean, I don't even want to name, but there are parties that came up like the Aam Aadmi Party, which for many people was seeming to be this alternative. I mean, that we're fed up with the national parties. We want an alternative, and I've seen really idealistic people across many parts of the country who got drawn to that idea, and then it's betrayed us very badly, betrayed those very values. The left also has got somewhat, I mean, not somewhat, extremely, it's the openness. It's not reinvented itself.
They don't feel like representatives of the people, right? They don't feel like our representatives.
You don't. So, and somebody like me, I mean, many people ask, why have you not entered electoral politics? And I struggle a lot, because I say that this is not a system I feel I can be part of, because of I cannot negotiate the moral gray areas that seem to be laid out as the terms for engaging. I mean, if you have to use crores of rupees of black money to get elected, then what is the moral stance that you're going to take on these issues? If you're going to use caste and religious majoritarianism to come to power, then what are you going to do later? So I think that what she represents to me is something that like something that I haven't been able to do, which is to work within the electoral system, but trying to change the rules of it. We don't have that in India yet. I don't think that the political opposition, the Congress, and the other parties are actually, uh, you know, fighting for reclaiming democracy on its own terms. You're still trying to play it by, you know, in the rules that have been set, which are subverting democracy. Within that, you're trying to find a space. I think
Right.
what makes her distinct is that she's trying to reclaim democracy as it was imagined in its ideal form.
Yeah, I remember studying about democracy in school and then being utterly shocked because, that's what it's supposed to mean. And then it is something else completely. There is no representation, there is no election of.
So stolen election, I mean, firstly, of course, in a very literal sense, we're seeing it happening with the, what's unfolding in Bihar and elsewhere. So that's one part. I think the huge influence of mega big business very transparently is the second thing
Yeah.
that we're witnessing. But the third, which I don't think is emphasized enough, is that after the experience of Nazi Germany, I think we need to keep reminding ourselves, almost like a mantra, that democracy is not even primarily about the will of the majority. It is about the protection of every minority, and I think that's again got lost in our system. So it's on all of these three. How do we keep the integrity of the process? We keep out the influence of big money and what we could call elite capture of the state. And thirdly, how do we have a system which is respectful and protective of the rights of the most vulnerable?
Yeah.
I think that's the challenge that I see. And
Now, your work, let's come to the work that you do. You're here for a conference as well, and you can tell us a little bit about that and what kind of discussions are set to happen over there. But you work very closely with people affected with violence, displacement, and discrimination, right? Like beyond ceremonies, awards,
yeah.
and the political spectacle, what does peace actually look like in daily lives? And when you honor, and you've spoken a bit about this obviously earlier as well during our conversation, what does it mean to honor people like Machado, to bring meaningful change on the ground rather than it being purely symbolic?
Yeah, and just about heroes, firstly, I mean, when we were children and growing up, our heroes were very different. I mean, our heroes were people like Gandhi and Nehru and Ambedkar, but also people who sacrificed their lives, went into villages, went into the slums, worked with the most disadvantaged. We've stopped honoring them. We've stopped celebrating them. I think so. So that's one part of it. But in my own work, I see the project of the BJP RSS. I mean, it's celebrating its 100 years. And it's one of those cruel ironies of history that the 100 years of the RSS fell this year on October 2nd, which is Gandhiji's birth anniversary. And it's almost as if history was telling us these are the two roads, and you have to choose one of them. I was speaking to Rajmohan Gandhi, who was Gandhiji's grandson. He was, in fact, a young boy at the time Gandhiji was assassinated. He's 90 years old now. And I asked him, why did the RSS hate Gandhiji so much? And in very beautiful, very simply, he said two things. He said, because Gandhiji first said India belongs equally to all people, including its Muslim citizens. Number one. And second, he said, because he said Ishwar and Allah are the same. And, I loved it because to me, that's the fight. That's what we are battling. We're battling for a country which belongs equally to every citizen of every faith and every caste and identity equally. And the second one, where we believe that Ishwar and Allah are all different parts of equal value, equal worth. Ishwar and Allah are the same.
Harsh,
But
could you share a story from on the ground, because you go with the Karwan Mohabbat on
yeah,
the ground, right? It would be really kind of
so
something
so
to hear a
yeah,
story from the ground from you.
there are too many stories, but let me just, I mean, so let me say that the battle, there are many attacks that the ruling establishment is doing to
Hmm.
the idea of democracy. But in India, the attack is centrally by the attack on India's Muslim
Yeah.
minorities, in the way that Nazi Germany's attacks were on the Jews, and therefore, for people who say that they're defending India's democracy but are silent on the Muslim question, it's like being in Nazi Germany and being silent about
Yes.
the Jews, and that's one. And second was that lynching is really a symbolic action of hate. I mean, they've not killed a massive number of people, but it's one boy, a Muslim boy is killed on a train close
Hmm.
to Delhi, and every young Muslim man across the country tells me how they're frightened to travel on a train and display their identity. It is that fear, which is why I felt that we need to also respond to these acts of hate with what I call radical love, where you go, and say, you're not alone. We
Hmm.
share your pain. We seek forgiveness for what has happened. Thirdly, that we pledge to be with you whatever happens as you pick up the pieces of your life. You fight for justice. And fourthly, we will tell you a story. And that's
Yeah.
how the Karwan started. And sadly, the hate violence continues. Our work continues. The government is sort of attacking me in so many ways. Resources are are almost impossible, but it's like the universe conspiring. People send money every month. We're still supporting about 100 widows, and so on. It's in those relationships. But the story, I'll tell you one one difficult
Hmm.
one, and a very good one, I think, maybe to symbolize. Uh, on the good side is something that families lynching, families who've lost loved ones to lynching, actually say, I wish they just shot him. I wish they just knifed him. Why did they torture him so much? Why is there so much hatred? Why are they sort of, they gouge out his eyes, they smash his genitals, etc. I've seen so many instances where you see this slow beating to death with the video camera, and it's a performance. It's a performance of hate, which is recorded and then circulated to millions. And one of the
Exactly.
last things I found that happens over and over again when you've lost a lot of blood, I've learned through all of these journeys, one of the last things you do is to beg for water. And their great triumph is that we did not even give him water, and so he becomes unconscious, uh, uh, you know, asking for water, and then he dies. It's that triumph, and to call this sort of, they regard this as great masculine sort of uh, courage and bravery. I find it the greatest cowardice. I mean, uh, courage is really in the person who intervenes and tries to stop this, which
Yeah.
is sadly very few. But if I have time, I'll tell you a good story as well. Should I do that, of
Sure.
the journey?
Yes, please. Of course, we
Yeah.
do have time for that.
So this is one of the most, I Asansol in Bengal.
Hmm.
So they have these Ram Navami. It's become a time when you use Ram Navami and you gather outside mosques and you provoke, and there's violence, etc. So one
Okay.
of those things happened also in Asansol, and it's remarkable because Ram was not even a particular uh, deity in Bengal, but they
Hmm.
used it. And so this skirmish broke out, and then they reached a point where they realized that two Hindu boys had got caught up in the Muslim area.
Hmm.
One Muslim boy had got caught up in the Hindu area, and there
Hmm.
was negotiations going on. You return and you return. And the Imam on the Muslim side, Imam Rashidi, he said, no, this is very wrong. Think of what the parents of these two Hindu children are going. Without any conditionality, we will return these boys.
Yes.
And we will hope that they return our child. And it
Wow.
turned out that the boy was the Imam's own son, who was caught on the other side. And he waited and he waited. And around midnight, a call comes to him. He's sitting alone praying at the mosque. And they say, we found your son, but the really sad news is they've killed him. And the Imam's first response is, don't tell anybody. The city will burn. I will tell them. And so the next morning, when people gather for the morning prayers, after the prayers, he says, you notice my son is not with me, and this is what has happened to him. But my son's death is a great tragedy. But if any of you harm a single Hindu person in retaliation, it'll be a much greater tragedy for me. And the young Muslim men were telling me that they were weeping. And if he hadn't said this, they'd have gone out and set the city on fire. And because of his words, they stood, they formed groups. And wherever there were Hindus in the area, they stood outside and protected them. And the city came to calmness. That's a just peace.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This feels so difficult to listen to either ways. I mean, it's supposed to be it's a story of hope for
Yeah.
sure. And I really wonder when we see these ongoing conflicts, right? We've seen so many images out of Gaza, out of
Yeah.
Ukraine, out of Sudan, and
You
authoritarian
see,
crackdowns
the
elsewhere.
great heroes in all of these. I mean, I think that, when I look at Gaza, for instance, I mean, in the middle of all of this, you have doctors who are, you have reporters, you have aid workers who are risking their lives, dying, seeing their whole families collapse around them. I mean, if I was giving the Nobel Prize this year, I would probably have given it just to the people of Gaza.
Yeah.
I just feel how they have, you've dealt with the worst kind of genocidal hate, retaining your humanity, protecting humanity around you. And I think that's probably what this award at its best represents.
Yeah. Harsh, I had one more question, but you've pretty much summed it up over here. So I will conclude with our questions here. But thank you so much. I do leave with a heavy heart listening to some of the stories you've told me. It's really difficult to,
Anupam,
particularly since, yeah.
no, I'm saying with a heavy heart, but I think as long as kindness and courage remain, we have reason to hope. Howard Zinn, this historian, he said something, so maybe that's a good thing to end with. He said that human history is not just a history of cruelty and oppression, it's also the history of courage and kindness. And it is important what we remember in this history will help define what we become. I think in my work, and probably at the other end of the globe, her work and many of us around the globe, what we are trying to do is to hold on to courage and kindness amidst hate and
Right.
injustice.
Yeah. In fact, since you mentioned it, I mean, one of the stories related to Maria Corina Machado is that I think one day when she was out there protesting, she was being attacked by the ruling party's people, and the police and or the army actually protected her. They took her to safety. So
Yeah,
and
that's it. I've encountered this so often, and I think, how do you fight hate without hate? And you create something else, you stir something else in society. Maybe that is what Maria's life and struggle teaches us.
Thank you so much, Harsh, and I hope we stay in touch. This is, I think, these conversations need to be out there more in public. to kind of be.
It's wonderful to talk to you. It's a great day to talk about it.
Hello, Maria. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, my name is Robin Hardy, and I work at the Norwegian Nobel Institute. First of all, congratulations. How are you feeling right now?
I don't know. I'm still processing. I think this is, what can I tell you? I mean, this is something that I believe the Venezuelan people deserve. I am just part of a huge movement, and I don't know. I'm humbled. I'm grateful, and I'm honored not only by this recognition, but I'm honored to be part of what's going on in Venezuela today, and very grateful. Thank you.